My heart stopped for 7 minutes. When I woke up, I heard my son Patrick saying, "The lake house is mine. You get the jewelry." My daughter was trying on my rings. They thought I was brain dead. I'm Eve Matthews, and I'm 72 years old. What happened in that hospital room changed everything I thought I knew about my children. But the real shock wasn't what I overheard. It was what I discovered after. I'm grateful you're here with me. Can you share in the comments where you're listening from? I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. Now, back to my story. The heart attack hit me on a Tuesday morning. I was pulling weeds in the rose garden. George's roses, the ones I'd kept alive for 3 years since he passed. My back was already complaining, that familiar ache that starts in my lower spine and radiates up. I should have stopped 20 minutes earlier, but there's something about having your hands in the dirt that makes you lose track of time, that makes you feel like you're doing something that matters. When my chest clenched, it felt exactly like someone had reached inside my rib cage and was squeezing my heart like a stress ball. The pain radiated down my left arm. I remember thinking, absurdly, that I needed to finish the east bed before the frost came. Those were George's pride and joy. He'd spent 30 years perfecting them, and I'd be damned if I let them die because of a little chest pain. Except, it wasn't a little chest pain. I knew that even as I was thinking about the roses, this wasn't heartburn, this wasn't anxiety, this was the real thing. I don't remember calling 911. My neighbor Carol told me later that I managed to dial before I collapsed, that she found me lying in the garden path, the phone still in my hand, my pruning shears scattered in the dirt like I'd just dropped them mid-cut. She said I was mumbling about the roses. I don't remember the ambulance, though Carol said they arrived within 8 minutes. I don't remember the EMTs loading me up, don't remember the sirens or the rush to the hospital. The neurologist told me later that my heart stopped in the ER right as they were prepping me for tests. Flatlined. 7 minutes of nothing. No heartbeat, no brain activity, nothing. They brought me back with the defibrillator paddles. Twice. The first time didn't take. The second time, my heart caught like an old engine finally turning over. The doctor who told me all this later, young guy, kind eyes, graying too early for someone who couldn't be older than 40, he kept using the word lucky. Lucky the neighbor found me. Lucky the ambulance came so fast. Lucky they got my heart restarted. Lucky I didn't have severe brain damage. He said that word so many times I started to hate it because I didn't feel lucky. When I woke up, or when I started to wake up in that gray, murky space between unconscious and conscious, I couldn't open my eyes. My eyelids felt like they weighed 100 pounds each. Couldn't move my fingers or my toes, couldn't turn my head, couldn't make a sound, couldn't call out, couldn't let anyone know I was there. But I could hear everything. The steady beep of the heart monitor, counting out my pulse like a metronome. The whoosh and hiss of some machine I couldn't identify. Ventilator maybe, or just the hospital's ventilation system. Someone's shoes squeaking on the linoleum, that distinctive sound that only hospital floors make. And voices. I could hear voices. How long before we know if there's brain damage? That was Kate, my daughter. Her voice had that tight, anxious quality I recognized from her childhood, from the time she was 8 and fell off her bike and broke her arm. She'd tried so hard not to cry in front of me, had bitten her lip until it bled, but her voice had that same tension, like a wire pulled too tight. A man's voice responded, calm and clinical in that way doctors have when they're delivering bad news wrapped in neutral language. The next 24 to 48 hours will tell us more. The length of time without oxygen is concerning. We've seen patients recover fully, but we've also seen significant impairment. So she might not wake up. That was Patrick, my son. His voice was flat, matter of fact, the way he sounded when he was on business calls, the way he used to tell George about quarterly earnings or stock portfolios, reducing everything to numbers and projections. It's too early to say for certain. We're monitoring her closely. Footsteps moving away. The door opening and closing with that whoosh that hospital doors make. Then silence. Just the machines. Just my heart monitor beeping away, proving I was alive even though I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't open my eyes to see my children. Then Kate's voice again. Closer now. She must have moved next to my bed. I could almost feel her presence, that sense you get when someone's standing near you, even when you can't see them. Patrick, we need to talk about this now, before anyone else gets here. I know. The scrape of a chair against the floor. He was sitting down, near my bed. Both of them were right there, right next to me, and they had no idea I could hear them. Do you have the key to her safe deposit box? My heart monitor beeped faster. I couldn't control it, couldn't slow it down. Could they hear the change? Did they notice? No, but I know which bank. First National downtown. Kate's voice was steady now, businesslike. The anxiety was gone, replaced by something else. Something organized and practical. We can say we need access for medical decisions or estate purposes. The jewelry alone is worth $80,000, maybe more. The diamond set from Dad, the emerald ring Grandma left her, those pearls she wore at our weddings. The pearls. George gave me those pearls for our 25th anniversary. Real ones, not cultured. He'd saved for 2 years. I'd only worn them a handful of times because I was always afraid of losing them. Fine, you get the jewelry. Patrick sounded tired, resigned, like they'd already discussed this, like they were just confirming details. I want the lake house. It's worth at least $600,000, maybe more, if we catch the right buyer. The market up there is hot right now. What about the investment accounts? The Vanguard funds, the CDs? We split those 50-50, but Kate, the lake house has to be mine. I've already talked to a developer, Tom Hendricks. Remember him from high school? He's interested in the whole shore lot, wants to put up condos. Cash deal, 30-day close. A developer. George and I bought that cabin 40 years ago. I can still remember the day we signed the papers, how excited we were, how we drove up there that same afternoon just to walk around the property. Patrick was just a toddler. Kate was a baby. We'd spent every summer there. Taught the kids to swim off that dock, taught them to fish. Patrick carved his initials in the big pine tree when he was 9, so proud of himself. George had pretended to be annoyed. That's vandalism, young man. But I'd caught him smiling at it later, running his fingers over the crude letters. And Patrick wanted to sell it to someone who'd tear it all down. What if she wakes up? Kate's voice was softer now, uncertain, almost like she was afraid to ask. Silence, long enough that I could count 5 beeps of the heart monitor. Then Patrick, if she wakes up with brain damage, we'll need power of attorney anyway. Medical decisions, financial decisions, all of it. We should talk to that estate lawyer, the one who did the Hendersons' trust when Bob had his stroke. He knows how to handle these situations. They kept talking, but a nurse came in then. I could tell it was a nurse by the soft rustle of scrubs, the gentle efficiency of her movements. She checked something, the IV maybe, or the monitor. Her hands were gentle when she touched my arm, adjusting something. She hummed quietly. When she left, the room was empty again. My children were gone. I lay there in the dark behind my closed eyes, my heart monitor beeping its steady rhythm, and I felt something inside me die that had nothing to do with my heart stopping. A different kind of death. The death of who I thought my children were. The death of the mother who had believed she'd raised good people. People who would mourn her, not inventory her. The next morning, I could open my eyes. It took everything I had, every ounce of strength, every bit of willpower, but I managed it. The room was too bright, fluorescent lights that made everything look washed out and sterile. There were tubes in my arm, something clipped to my finger, wires running everywhere. The machines around me beeped and whooshed, a symphony of mechanical life support. The neurologist, Dr. Patel, his name tag said, leaned over me with a warm smile. Mrs. Matthews, can you hear me? Blink once for yes, twice for no. I blinked once. His smile got wider. Excellent. Do you know where you are? I blinked once again. Do you know your name? Another blink. He went through a whole series of questions. What day was it? Who was the president? Could I move my fingers, my toes? Could I tell him what year it was? I answered everything correctly, first with blinks, and then, when my voice started working again, with croaking words that barely sounded like me. Remarkable, he kept saying, shaking his head like he couldn't quite believe it. Truly remarkable. 7 minutes without oxygen and your cognitive function appears completely intact. You're a very, very lucky woman, Mrs. Matthews. There was that word again. Lucky. Patrick and Kate arrived 20 minutes later. I heard them before I saw them, Kate's heels clicking on the floor, Patrick's lower voice talking to someone, maybe a nurse. Then they were there, in my room, and they looked exactly like loving children should look. Kate was carrying flowers, white roses, my favorite, though I'd never told her that explicitly. She must have remembered from all the times George brought them home. She set them on the bedside table, her movements careful, precise. She was wearing a cashmere sweater, cream-colored, expensive-looking, the kind she always wore to look professional. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. She looked like a woman who had everything under control. Patrick had coffee from the good place downtown. Not hospital coffee, not gas station coffee, but the fancy place where a latte cost $7. He was in his golf shirt and khakis, his expensive watch catching the light. His hair was graying at the temples, exactly the way George's had. The same pattern, the same distinguished silver. "Mom," Kate's eyes filled with tears as she took my hand. Real tears. I could see them gathering, spilling over, running down her carefully made-up face. "Oh, Mom." We were so scared. "You're awake." Patrick set the coffee down and squeezed my shoulder, gentle but firm. "Thank God, we thought—" His voice cracked, convincingly, perfectly timed. "We thought we'd lost you." I looked at both of them, really looked at them. Tried to reconcile these concerned, loving faces with the voices I'd heard yesterday. The calculating voices, the practical voices. The voices that had discussed my assets like line items on a spreadsheet. "I heard you," I said. My voice was rough, scratchy from the breathing tube they must have had down my throat, but it was clear enough. Kate's hand tightened on mine. "What?" "Yesterday, when I was unconscious, I heard everything you said." The color drained from both their faces. Just drained right out, like someone had pulled a plug. Kate's hand went slack in mine. Patrick's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. Patrick recovered first. He always was quicker on his feet. "Mom, you were unconscious. The doctor said you were unresponsive. You couldn't have—" "I heard you planning how to divide my jewelry. I heard you talking about the lake house and the developer. Tom Hendricks, 30-day close, condos." My voice was getting stronger now, fueled by something cold and hard in my chest. "I heard you discussing power of attorney in case I woke up with brain damage. I heard every single word." Kate pulled her hand back like she'd touched something hot. "Mom, you don't understand. We were in shock. We were grieving. People say things when they're in trauma, things they don't mean. You weren't grieving. You were calculating. You were itemizing me like I was a garage sale. That's not fair." Patrick's voice rose, defensive now. "You just died, Mom. Do you understand that? Your heart stopped. For 7 minutes. We thought you were gone forever. People process trauma in different ways. We were trying to be practical because someone has to think about these things." Practical. The word tasted bitter. "Is that what you call it?" "Your father spent 30 years on that cabin, built that dock with his own hands, replaced it twice, planted every tree around it, and you wanted to sell it to someone who'd tear it down before I was even in the ground. The cabin needs constant repairs. The roof leaks. The foundation—" "Get out," I said. They both stared at me. "Get out of my room. Both of you. Now." "Mom," Kate started, her voice breaking. "Now." They left. Kate was crying, real sobs now. Patrick's face was red, embarrassment or anger or both. I didn't care. I watched them go, watched the door close behind them, and then I was alone with the machines and the white roses and the coffee I didn't want. I reached for my phone on the bedside table. My hands shook. From weakness or rage or grief, I couldn't tell. Maybe all three. But I managed to pull up my contacts, managed to find Thomas Brennan's number. He'd been our lawyer for 30 years, handled our first mortgage, George's business contracts, the estate planning when George died. Good man, honest, careful. He answered on the third ring. "Eve? I heard about your heart attack. Are you all right? How are you feeling?" "I need to change my will, Thomas, as soon as possible. Can you come to the hospital?" A pause. I could hear him breathing, could imagine him in his office with its leather chairs and law books. "Of course I can come. But Eve, you should rest. You've been through major trauma. We can handle this when you're home and recovered." "No, Now? It has to be now, Thomas. Please. All right, let me clear my afternoon. I'll be there by 3. Is that acceptable? Thank you. He came right on time, briefcase in hand, looking concerned, pulled up a chair, took out his legal pad, and listened while I told him everything. About waking up unable to move, about hearing my children divide my estate, about the jewelry and the cabin and the developer, about Patrick's calculations and Kate's practicality and the complete absence of grief in their voices. He listened without interrupting, his pen moving steadily across the paper. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Eve, I understand you're hurt. I understand you're angry, but you're also recovering from a massive trauma. Your judgment might be affected by pain medication, by shock, by the physiological effects of what your body's been through. Are you certain you want to do this now? I'm certain. Where do you want the estate to go? I hadn't thought that far, hadn't thought past removing my children from the will. Charity, the American Heart Association, cancer research, just not to them. Thomas set down his pen and looked at me over his reading glasses. Sleep on it, Eve. Give yourself a week at least. If you still feel this way when you're home and recovered, when you're thinking more clearly, we'll do it then. My thinking is perfectly clear. Is it? Because you've suffered a major cardiac event. You're on morphine for the pain. You're traumatized. This is not the time to make permanent legal decisions. They stood over my dying body and divided me up like furniture. I know, and that's terrible, but Eve, you've known these children their whole lives. Are they the kind of people who would really do this, or were they two scared people saying things in crisis that they didn't mean? I thought about that. Patrick had always been driven, always focused on success, but greedy? Kate had always been practical, organized, but cold? Or had I just never looked closely enough before? I want the will changed, Thomas. Today. If you won't do it, I'll find someone who will. He sighed. All right, but I'm documenting everything. I'm noting that you were of sound mind, that you weren't coerced, that this represents your true wishes. If they contest it later, and they will, I want it absolutely clear this was your choice. We spent 2 hours going through everything. Every asset, every account, every piece of jewelry and furniture and stock certificate. By the time he left, my new will was drafted. By the time I was discharged 4 days later, it was signed, witnessed, notarized, and filed. Patrick and Kate didn't come back to the hospital. Kate texted a few times. Mom, please, can we talk? But I didn't respond. Patrick called once and left a voicemail saying they'd made a mistake. They were sorry. Could we please discuss this like adults? I deleted it without finishing it. When I was discharged, a nurse wheeled me to the entrance where a cab was waiting. No children to drive me home, no family to help me get settled, just me and a cab driver who tried to make small talk about the weather while I stared out the window and said nothing. I came home to the empty house. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. The coffee cup from that Tuesday morning still sitting in the sink, a thin skin of mold floating on top. The pruning shears Carol had retrieved from the garden, placed neatly on the back porch along with a casserole and a note. Welcome home. Call if you need anything. Love, Carol. George's roses were dead. I'd only been gone a week, but the early frost had taken them. They stood in the garden like skeletons, brown and brittle, the blooms shriveled and papery. I stood there looking at them for a long time, and I thought, at least roses don't lie. When they're dead, they're honest about it. The house felt too big. It always had, since George died 3 years ago, but now it echoed with a different kind of emptiness. His chair still sat in the living room, the cushion permanently compressed from 40 years of him sitting there every evening, his reading glasses still on the side table, even though he didn't need them anymore. His slippers by the door. I tried to throw them away a dozen times and couldn't do it. I made tea because I didn't know what else to do. Sat in George's chair, I still thought of it as his chair, would probably always think of it as his chair, and tried to understand, tried to figure out where I'd gone wrong. Had we spoiled them, given them too much, made them expect inheritance instead of teaching them to earn their own way? My phone rang. Kate. I watched it ring, watched her name light up the screen. Let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Finally, I turned it off and sat in the silence. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Cardiac rehab twice a week, walking on treadmills, lifting light weights, learning about low-sodium diets from a nutritionist who looked about 12 years old. Follow-up appointments with Dr. Patel, who kept marveling at my recovery. Miraculous, he said every time. We rarely see this kind of bounce back. I didn't feel miraculous. I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped out everything important and left just the shell. Carol checked on me every few days, bringing casseroles I didn't eat and gossip I didn't care about. She didn't ask about Patrick and Kate, and I was grateful. In a town this small, people knew something had happened. People always knew. But Carol had enough grace not to pry. 3 weeks after I came home, the doctor cleared me to drive. Take it easy, he said. Don't overdo it. Listen to your body. So I drove myself to the grocery store on a Thursday afternoon when I knew it would be quiet. I was in the produce section, staring at the onions without really seeing them, when I heard a voice I recognized. Grandma? Oh my God, Grandma Eve? I turned, and there she was. Emma, Kate's daughter, my granddaughter, 16 years old now. Where has the time gone? She had Kate's eyes and George's nose and a smile that made my chest ache. Emma! I couldn't move. Couldn't do anything but stand there holding a head of lettuce I didn't remember picking up. She rushed over and hugged me, hard, the way teenagers hug when they still mean it. I heard you had a heart attack. Are you okay? Mom said you were in the hospital, but nobody told me it was serious. Are you really okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. The word came automatically, muscle memory from 1,000 other times I'd said it. What are you doing here? Don't you and your mom live in Riverside? We do. She glanced back at her shopping cart. It was loaded with store-brand everything, generic cereal, day-old bread, dented cans in the discount bin. I'm staying with a friend this week. Her family lives here. Something in her voice wasn't right. A tremor, a hesitation, the way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Emma, is everything okay? Yeah, totally fine. Too bright, too fast. The way kids sound when they're lying to protect you. I should go, though. My friend's waiting in the car. Wait. I touched her arm, felt how thin she'd gotten under her jacket. Can we have lunch? Tomorrow? I'd love to catch up. I've missed you. She hesitated, and I saw something flicker across her face. Relief, maybe, or fear, or both. Okay, yeah, I'd really like that. We exchanged numbers. She had a phone now, which surprised me, and agreed to meet at the diner on Main Street at noon. I watched her walk away, pushing that cart full of cheap groceries, and something twisted in my chest. The next day, Emma arrived at the diner 15 minutes early. I was already there, watching through the window as she walked up the street. She was wearing jeans with holes in the knees, fashionable ones or actual wear, I couldn't tell, and a jacket that was way too thin for late October. No scarf, no gloves, walking with her shoulders hunched against the cold. She slid into the booth across from me and tried to smile. Hi, Grandma. Hi, honey. I pushed a menu toward her. Order anything you want, anything at all. She ordered a burger and fries and a chocolate milkshake, and when the food came, she ate like she hadn't had a good meal in weeks, like someone who knew this meal mattered. I ordered soup I didn't want and watched her eat. When she was halfway through the burger, I said, Tell me what's really going on, Emma. She stopped chewing. Her eyes got wide. What do you mean? You're not staying with a friend, are you? Her face crumpled, just completely fell apart. She set down the burger and started crying, quiet tears that ran down her face while she tried to wipe them away with the cheap paper napkin that disintegrated in her fingers. How did you know? Because I'm your grandmother. Because I know when something's wrong. Talk to me, sweetheart, please. It came out in pieces. Broken pieces that didn't want to fit together, but eventually did. Kate had lost her job 18 months ago. Corporate restructuring. Last, hired, first, fired, the usual story. She'd been looking for work, but nothing in her field paid enough. Nothing covered both rent and food and Emma's school expenses and everything else. Mom didn't want anyone to know, Emma said, her voice small and ashamed. She was so embarrassed. She kept saying she'd fix it. She'd find something. Everything would be fine. Why didn't she ask for help? Why didn't she tell me? Emma looked at me like I'd asked why water was wet. Grandma, you know Mom. She'd rather die than admit she's struggling. She's always been like that. And I realized that she was right. Kate had always been like that. Self-sufficient, independent, never asking for anything. And I'd let her be that way. I'd even admired it. "Where are you staying, Emma?" "Really?" She took a shaky breath. "Mom's car. We've been sleeping in Mom's car for 3 weeks." The soup in my stomach turned to acid. "What?" "We lost the apartment in September. Mom couldn't make rent anymore. The landlord evicted us. We've been staying at different Walmart parking lots, different places where they don't bother you if you're just sleeping, showering at the gym. Mom kept her gym membership because she said she needed it to stay presentable for job interviews." Emma wiped her eyes. "She keeps saying it's temporary, that she has interviews, that something will come through. My granddaughter, my daughter, sleeping in a car." "Why were you at the grocery store yesterday?" I asked, though I thought I knew. "Mom gave me $60 for the week, for food. She's been doing DoorDash at night to make gas money, but the car's old and not efficient," and her voice cracked. "Grandma, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen to us." I reached across the table and took her hand, held it tight. "You're going to stay with me, both of you." "Mom won't come. I've tried. She won't take charity. I don't care what she calls it. Give me your mother's number." Emma did, her hands shaking as she read it off her phone. I called right there, with Emma watching me with hopeful, terrified eyes. Kate answered on the 5th ring. "Hello?" Cautious, wary, the voice of someone who's been dodging bill collectors. "Kate, it's Mom. I'm with Emma. She told me everything." Silence, the kind of silence that's full of 1,000 things unsaid. "Why didn't you tell me you lost your job? Why didn't you ask for help?" "Because I don't need your help." Her voice was hard, brittle. "Emma shouldn't have said anything. We're fine. You're sleeping in your car, temporarily. I have an interview next week. Stop, just stop lying. Come to my house tonight, both of you. I don't want your charity and I don't want your judgment." "It's not charity. You're my daughter." "Am I?" The bitterness in her voice could have stripped paint. "You cut me out of your will, Mom. You know how I found out? Emma's friend's mom works at Brennan's office. She photocopied the paperwork and showed it around town because apparently my life falling apart makes good gossip. You left everything to the American Heart Association. The house, the cabin, the money, all of it. So, forgive me if I don't think I'm your daughter anymore." I hadn't known it had leaked. Hadn't known the whole town was talking about it. "Kate, I know what I said at the hospital. I know you hurt us, and I'm not going to apologize for being human, for having one moment of weakness when I thought my mother was dying. Do you have any idea what that was like? Standing there thinking you were gone? You weren't grieving. You were planning. I was terrified." She was crying now, her voice breaking into pieces. "I was absolutely terrified, and I didn't know how to handle it, so I did what I always do. I made lists and plans and focused on logistics because if I don't stay practical, I fall completely apart. And yes, I thought about the money because I'm broke and desperate and I've been hanging on by my fingernails for 18 months. And for one horrible, shameful moment, I thought maybe your death was the answer. Maybe that's how I'd save my daughter." I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, unable to speak. "But I'm glad you survived," Kate continued. "I'm so glad. And I'm glad you cut me out, because now I don't have to feel guilty. Now I can just be poor and ashamed on my own. Now I don't have to wonder if I'm a monster for the things I thought while you were dying. Now I just get to know I am." She hung up. I sat there holding the phone while Emma cried across from me. Eventually, I paid the bill and drove Emma to where Kate was parked, a Walmart lot on the edge of town, in a corner where the lights didn't quite reach. Kate's car was a 10-year-old sedan with a cracked windshield. The back seat was full of garbage bags that I realized, with a sick feeling, were their clothes, their whole lives packed in garbage bags. Kate got out when she saw me. She looked exhausted, her hair unwashed, her cashmere sweater long gone, replaced by a stained hoodie. She looked like she hadn't slept properly in months. "Go away, Mom." "No, I mean it. You're staying with me, both of you, tonight. Pack your things and follow me home. I told you, I don't care what you told me. You're my daughter. You're not sleeping in a car when I have 4 empty bedrooms. Kate's face crumpled. She tried to hold it together. I could see her trying, could see the enormous effort it took, but she couldn't. She started crying, deep, gasping sobs that sounded like they'd been locked inside for a year. I hugged her while she cried, held my daughter while she finally stopped pretending to be fine. "I'm so tired, Mom," she whispered. "I'm so tired." "I know, baby. Come home." They came home. Emma took the guest room. Kate took her old childhood bedroom. That first night, I made spaghetti, nothing fancy, just what I had, and we sat at the kitchen table like we used to. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "About any of this?" Kate looked at her plate. "Because I'm 46 years old. I should be able to handle my own life. You're also my daughter." "Am I?" "Because you and Dad always helped Patrick, gave him $50,000 for his business. But when I got divorced and asked for help, you said you'd already helped Patrick that year. Like, there was a budget for children and it could only cover one." I remembered. God help me. I remembered that phone call. "I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm just explaining. I learned that asking for help meant being told no, so I stopped asking." We talked for hours that night. About Patrick and the favoritism, about George and his complaints about me during his final years, how he'd poisoned the kids against me without meaning to, about how Kate had been invisible by being competent. Over the next few weeks, Kate found a job. Not in her old field, but something stable. Emma enrolled in the local high school. We built a routine. We became a family again. Then Patrick's letter came. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about what I said at the hospital, about the money, about everything. You were right. I did take you for granted. I thought because you and Dad helped me before, you'd always help me. I thought I deserved it. I don't. My business failed. I had to declare bankruptcy last month, lost the house. Karen and I are separated. Turns out when the money's gone, so is she. I'm living in a rental and driving for Uber to make ends meet. I'm not asking for money. I know you won't give it, and I understand why. I'm just asking if, maybe, sometime, I could come visit. I'd like to apologize in person. I'd like to try again. If you don't want that, I understand that too." I read it 3 times before calling Kate. We read it together. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think people can change," she said, "if they want to." I called Patrick. "You can come visit. Next Sunday if you want, for dinner." A long pause. Then, his voice thick. "Really? Really? But Patrick, I'm not giving you money. I'm not bailing you out. If you come as my son, not as someone looking for help." "I understand. Thank you, Mom." He came that Sunday. He looked older, thinner. He shook Kate's hand awkwardly. He gave Emma a $20 bill and told her to buy herself something nice. She looked at me and I nodded and she took it. Dinner was uncomfortable. Patrick didn't talk much. Kate asked polite questions about his new job. Emma told stories about school. I served pot roast and watched my children navigate around each other like strangers. After dinner, Patrick helped me clean up while Kate and Emma watched a movie in the living room. "Kate seems good," he said, drying a plate. "She is. I didn't know she was struggling." She never said. "Would you have helped if you'd known?" He was quiet. Then, "I don't know." "Maybe not. I was pretty focused on my own problems." "Patrick, why did you say those things at the hospital?" "Really? Not the surface answer. The real one." He set down the plate. "Because I was scared. Not just about you dying, about what would happen to me if you did. My business was already failing. Karen was already talking about leaving. I was drowning, and I thought maybe if you died, the inheritance would be enough to save me. And I hated myself for thinking it, even while I was saying it." "Did it save you?" "No. Nothing could have saved that business, or that marriage. I just hadn't admitted it yet." "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know. Figure it out, I guess, like Kate did." I handed him another dish. She didn't figure it out alone. She finally asked for help. "From you." "Yes. After 18 months of trying to do it by herself. She's stubborn. Wonder where she got that." I smiled. "Your father, probably." We finished the dishes in silence. When Patrick left, he hugged me. A real hug, not the quick social kind. He hugged Kate too. She looked surprised, but hugged him back. "Thank you," he said to both of us. Then he left. "Think he'll come back?" Kate asked. "I don't know. I hope so." Over the next few months, Patrick did come back. Once a month, then twice, then more often. He started bringing groceries sometimes, helping with yard work. He and Kate were awkward together at first, then gradually easier. Emma warmed to him. In June, on what would have been George's 75th birthday, we all went to the lake cabin together. Me, Kate, Emma, and Patrick. We hadn't been there in 3 years, not since George died. The cabin needed work. The dock was rotting. The pine tree where Patrick had carved his initials was still standing, bigger now. "I was going to sell this," Patrick said, looking out at the water, "to a developer. He was going to tear it all down and build condos." "Why didn't you?" Emma asked. "Because Mom didn't die." He looked at me, and I'm glad she didn't. We spent the day cleaning the cabin, fixing what we could. Emma found George's old fishing tackle. Kate swept 3 years of dust off the floors. Patrick patched a leak in the roof. That evening, we sat on the porch and watched the sunset over the lake. Emma was teaching herself to fish with George's rod. Kate was reading. Patrick was whittling a piece of wood with George's old knife. "I've been thinking," Patrick said, "about the cabin, about what to do with it." "It's yours," I reminded him. "In the will. You can do whatever you want." "I know, but I don't want to sell it. I was thinking maybe we could share it. All of us, keep it in the family like Dad would have wanted." Kate looked up from her book. "Really?" "Yeah, I mean, if you want, it could be a place Emma brings her kids someday, a place we all come back to." "I'd like that," Kate said softly. "Me too," Emma added, not looking up from her fishing line. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice. That night, sleeping in the cabin's old guest bed, I thought about the hospital. About lying there, hearing my children plan my estate. About how I'd thought everything was ruined, broken beyond repair. But people weren't houses or roses or inheritances. They were complicated and messy and capable of terrible things in desperate moments. And sometimes, if you were lucky, they were capable of change too. My heart had stopped for 7 minutes, but when it started again, so did something else. A second chance. Not just for me, but for all of us. I fell asleep listening to the lake water lap against the dock. Have you ever heard something you weren't supposed to hear? Something that changed everything? I would love to hear your story. Can you also do me a favor and subscribe to this channel? This way, we can meet again in another story.